This is a severe weather alert from WWL Weather, sponsored by Egan Insurance Agency.
Welcome back. It is 11 p.m. during our Hurricane Francine coverage. Now Tropical Storm Francine, as it moves northward, it has moved out of the southern parts of our viewing area, and Orleans and Jefferson Parish, and is on its way to the North Shore right now.
It certainly is, and as Chris Franklin has mentioned, it is starting to weaken, which is good news. However, it has left significant problems in its path, among them damage, power outages, and flooding, and that is what we want to address right now. We're hearing both in Jefferson and Orleans parishes that there is significant water in the streets. City Council member Helena Moreno for New Orleans is joining us by phone tonight to give us the latest on what happened there. Helena, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. You know, obviously our first question is what's happening with the Sewerage and Water Board? What are you hearing? You know, we're hearing that the EMDs may have gone down and that there may have been some power issues, you know, with the agency.
So it looks like, I mean, the Sewerage and Water Board has been doing the best that they can, kind of with a game of whack-a-mole all evening. It does appear, just kind of the latest information that I'm getting, that there appear to be some EMDs down, which is our backup power for some of the pumps. Just to give you a little bit of a timeline here, and sorry, I'm going through like a variety of different texts and emails and things like that, but it looks like, let's see, roughly around 7 o'clock, it looks like DPS 12, which is the pumping station over near City Park, one of the ones by City Park, that it went down because it lost energy power. And then they got that one back on, and then they lost another station because of loss of energy power, and they were able to get that one back on. And that one, the second one that went down was number 14, which is New Orleans East. And then it looks like they started to have some, you know, obviously the severe issues with the rain and things like that. So we started to see canal levels really go up in Holly Grove, Lakeview, Chantilly, and also in New Orleans East. And at the same time, some of the EMDs, those tripped offline. And so those tripped offline, but then they were able to get the EMDs, which once again, that's the backup power, back on. But now apparently it seems that maybe those have tripped back off again. And so we've got, you know, Steve Nelson, who's one of the top folks over at Sewerage and Water Board, looking at EMD operations right now. Everybody's on site trying to get things moving again. But that seems to be the very latest. Seems like all hands on deck right now to try to get this situation resolved. So it looks like it's, you know, kind of a combination of obviously, you know, Entergy New Orleans issues with power, and we've seen that throughout the city. But then it may have been also a situation where some of the redundancies may have been some issues with some of the redundancies, the EMDs that I've been talking about, the backup power that may have also tripped offline. Earlier today, that situation was resolved fairly quickly, so hopefully that's going to be resolved fairly quickly again. But that's the latest information that I've been receiving. Once again, also taking a look at just different places that are receiving, you know, significant street flooding. I also want to make sure that your viewers know that they can take a look at, you know, different street flooding that's happening across the city. If they go to streetwisenola.gov, that's one of the dashboards that we have that's live, that lets you know, like, where are the underpasses that remain closed and things like that. So just some things that, you know, may be able to provide good information that's easily searchable online.
Okay, thank you so much for that update. Now, Pump Station 12 is the one in Lakeview that gets water, you know, kind of out of that upper part of Lakeview. Was that pump, you said it was turned back on, was that using one of the frequency changers and getting energy power you mentioned?
So that one was turned back on, and that was way earlier in the evening. I mean, it seems so much has happened since 7 o'clock, but that was way early on, and I haven't heard any additional issues with DPS 12.
And do you know, is Lakeview starting to drain, or are any of these streets starting to drain at this point, or are we still kind of in a holding pattern until they figure out how to adequately power everything?
I mean, the thing that I've been mostly concerned about is how do you get those EMDs working again? So that's really where I've been focused on, like, what are you all doing to get that back going? And it does seem that it's all hands on deck, trying to get the EMDs back on so that we can, make sure that we are pumping the water out correctly.
And the turbines have not gone down, right? Those main power generating turbines?
Not that I've heard of. This is like I said, it's just a variety of different emails and texts back and forth as they're trying to work on emergency operations. But like I said, I mean, it seems like it's very much been kind of a game of whack-a-mole all night.
Do you know if there have been any,
running smoothly?
We heard some reports of homes taking on water. David Hammer, listed a couple in his report just a little while ago.
I think specifically Lakeview, he said.
Lakeview,
right?
yes. What are you hearing?
Yeah, we're definitely hearing about issues in Lakeview, flooding in Gentilly. Some in Gentilly are telling me that they haven't seen flooding like this, like really ever in parts of their neighborhood. So yes, Lakeview, Gentilly, Mid-City, obviously, the Broad area over by the Zulu Club, that apparently is flooded again. So yes, I mean, no doubt about it, we unfortunately do have some flooded areas, and I'm sure you've probably already heard there was a rescue over by the canal underpass. We remind people, please, please, please do not get in your cars and drive. Just because it stopped raining doesn't mean that the streets aren't still flooding and that there aren't power lines down. It's still a really dangerous situation out there. Please don't get out there and drive. And then when it comes to power outages, obviously have been talking to Entergy all night. They are working on trying to begin switching so that, and what I mean by switching is like switching to other power sources, potentially those that they can tonight, to restore some people's power tonight. And so that could be happening soon. They have to wait until the majority of the storm passes and obviously the winds subside to less than 30 miles an hour. And then after that, at first light, they'll begin, doing all of the damage assessments and repairs across the city to get everybody's power back on.
Do you know, I mean, obviously the wind has died down. There's no way that the winds are still, past that threshold. But can they get anywhere, given that the roads are flooded, to really assess things and figure out what's going on?
That's the thing. Usually they wait till first light to be able to go out and do the damage assessment and start the actual repairs. But there are some times when, the grid is able to switch around some people's power and, and get power back on when it's not necessarily maybe something that's a complete damage to a line, like your pole didn't get knocked down. Maybe it's a trip situation that can still, potentially get power restored to you tonight. But more than likely it's going to be, after first light, when they can assess the damage and get crews out there. I do want to say this, that Entergy New Orleans, does have thousands of crews around the New Orleans area staged and ready to go. They did have all of that in place. They've also had their war room in place, ready to activate teams. They've certainly been monitoring the situation and advising the city council as to what's going on and where the power outages are throughout tonight, and of course now into the evening as well and overnight.
That's reassuring that they're keeping you all informed. I know that people wish that they would be able to get out there sooner and really start reassessing things. And I'm sure the large number of people, I'm not sure what the tally is right now. I'd have to take a look at the map, but all of those people who are without power tonight, appreciate any effort that they can make as soon as possible to get the AC back on.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, let's see. It looks like at the 11 o'clock report, it looked like for Entergy New Orleans, there were 45,536 customers out.
Wow.
And so, let's see. Yeah, so first light, they'll start the damage assessment. Sorry, I'm just reading through like different texts here as they're coming in. The other thing too, I just want to remind everyone, Katie and Devin, that what we traditionally do, and it looks like that is the plan again, although I don't know exactly which rec centers will be open, but you know, if there are people with significant power outages and they need to go and, let's say, charge their cell phone and get some AC, get some water, things like that. In the past, we have opened up rec centers, which from what I understand, as needed, that will happen again after this particular storm. And then I also want to remind everyone who's watching that since Hurricane Ida, we've moved forward with community lighthouse projects that are meant to be brought to the public or made available to the public when the grid goes down. And these are different churches and nonprofits that have allowed us to put solar panels on their buildings and batteries. And so they don't need generator power. Through the batteries and solar panels, they're able to have AC and be able to operate even when they're not on the grid. And we're hoping to, potentially have some of those up and running, once again, depending on need tomorrow.
That is very hopeful that people can get there as long as we get the streets drained. I know in New Orleans, there was mention that all of the shelters that are currently open right now were full. Is that still the case?
So in New Orleans, what we had open was Rosenwald, but Rosenwald, remember, was specifically for our unhoused population. Okay. And so that's what's open at this moment. But obviously you should be getting information from the city of New Orleans, from NOSEP, early in the morning to start putting out information as to potential centers that will be open, the resource centers that will be open. Should people need water and potential supplies and things like that. And I'm also already hearing that nonprofits like United Way are already preparing to start assisting people, as they always do, who may have had their homes flooded, who may potentially need some kind of assistance with food and things like that. And United Way has always been such an amazing and tremendous resource for our entire region.
Okay, Councilmember Helena Moreno, we really appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
And again,
Thank
takeaways
you guys.
from this.
Appreciate you.
All hands on deck at the Sewerage and Water Board to try and figure out what's going on with the power situation. Those backup generators that used to be backup generators that have now been relied on as obviously a primary source of power in situations like this went down at some point, tripped offline. Whenever they say that, normally that's a problem. That's an indicator of a problem happening. And so they have to figure out a way to get them back up. And then at that point, they can really start making some progress in trying to drain the city. Now, she did say that there was a problem in Lakeview earlier tonight at Pump Station 12, that lost power from Entergy. They had to send power from elsewhere to that pumping station to get it back up and running. But in the meantime, those EMDs went down, so that caused another problem with having enough power to power the drainage system overall. So
whack-a-mole, she described it, and that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yes.